friends, and welcome to All By My Shelf. I'm Miss Rachel, and it's so nice to see you. Today's panel is I Got a Feeling. Actually, a lot of them. 6 incredible YA authors are here to talk to you today about their books and their amazing contemporary settings. Those authors are Nita Tyndall, Katherine Webber, Shanon Takaoka, Candice Montgomery, Anuradha Rajurkar, and Dante Medema. I hope you enjoy this panel. And welcome to this beautiful contemporary panel. I would like to start off by having all of our lovely panelists introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their book or books, if the case may be. Whoever would like to start can start.
I'm Anuradha Rajurkar, and my book, it's a debut. It's a YA contemporary called American BETIYA. And it's about an Indian-American senior named Ronnie who finds herself managing a forbidden interracial first love and the expectations and boundaries of her immigrant family and her boyfriend's sort of desperate desire to fit into her Indian culture, even if it means betrayal. So.
That sounds amazing. I'm excited. When does it come out? You said it's your debut, so when is it coming out?
February 2021, as far as I know. So.
Right, I'm Katherine Webber. I'm the author of Heartbeats of Wing Jones, which came out in 2017, actually, and Only Love Can Break Your Heart, which came out this past January, 2020. Only Love Can Break Your Heart is about a pretty popular privileged girl named Reiko Smith-Morey who acts like she's got everything all together, but she is hiding a very big secret from her family and her friends. And then one night when she's out in the desert, the book is set in Palm Springs, California, she meets a boy named Seth, and she thinks that he is seeing her for the real her and how she wants to be seen. So they start up a really intense friendship, bordering on relationship that summer. But she is kind of putting a lot of things on him, and he wants her to maybe be who she isn't exactly. So it's a lot about like how you present yourself, first love, but is it actually first love? A lot about family. And I've shown you guys my favorite part about the book. Like I said, Sen Palm Springs. The cover is very pretty. And underneath, on the hardback, it's got like little like things of dinosaurs that are the dinosaurs from Palm Springs. Isn't that so cool? Secret dinosaurs on the hardback. So that's my favorite thing about the whole book, more than any words that I wrote in it. The secret carved dinosaurs.
And Katie, for any of our teens that have younger siblings, you also have a younger reader's book with your hubby, right?
I do. Thank you. Yeah, so with my husband Kevin, I write for middle grade readers. We have a series called Sam Wu is Not Afraid, and it's about a little boy named Sam who has to face all of his various fears. So he does ghosts, sharks, the dark, spiders, and then we also have a middle grade adventure called Dragon Mountain coming out this fall, and that's under a married named Katie Sang, so that's Katie and Kevin Sang. And Dragon Mountain has lots of dragons and a group of 4 kids, and it also YA readers. You guys can read middle grade too, so if you like dragons, check it out.
All right, I guess I'll go. So my debut novel, The Truth Project, comes out October 13th with Quill Tree Books. It's about a girl, Cordelia, who finds out via an online ancestry kit that she's the product of an affair, and kind of her journey to finding herself through all of that. And it's written in verse and texts and emails.
I love it. That's cover cover is so cool. Like, just seeing it, I don't believe I've seen it before, and this is a nice time to see it. I think because you got my real-time reaction. Yeah, that is so beautiful. I love it. And your premise, it just reminds me, I guess I'll jump in right here. It reminds me of my debut, Home and Away, which is basically about a girl who, same thing, like finds out the truth of her ancestry and her biological family, and it goes from there. So very awesome. So yeah, I guess I'll just go from there with this is said book, Home and Away. Oh, she's jumping into the bathhouse. So that's the main character there, and yeah, like I said, she's a teen, and she's like the first football player, or she's the first female football player on her high school's team, and she is like very secure in who she is until that moment. So she just has this whole discovery of like, my biological father is white and I've been lied to about it, and I have this like moment of just like discovery, and she just goes through the story basically exploring who she is and what it means to be who she is and what it means to be biracial, with a very cute bisexual boy. So and then my latest came out in October of last year. It's called By Any Means Necessary, and it's about a first-time college freshman named Tori, and he's the first to go to college in his family. He is leaving behind his apiary, which was willed to him by his uncle, who has since passed. So it's near and dear to his heart. An apiary, because I had to explain it to my agent the first time we talked about the book, is essentially just a farm for bees. So he goes away to college up in San Francisco, and he has to like basically do this back and forth between like, what do I owe my family and this bee farm that I have back home, and what do I owe myself? Am I allowed to like pursue this new relationship with a cute boy who dances ballet, and am I allowed to make friends who are not just people I've grown up with in my old neighborhood, and am I allowed to want more for myself? So yeah, those are my two book babies.
All your books sound amazing. I can't wait to read them. I'm Shanon Takaoka, and my book is coming out October 13th, same day as Dante, from Candice Press. And I have PRCs now, so this is the cover. It's about a 17-year-old girl named Chloe, whose life gets turned upside down by a heart defect, and she has to have a heart transplant, which causes her to question everything about who she is and who she wants to be. And previously she's kind of an academic overachiever, has been on the hamster wheel trying to get into a good college, and she's really starts to think about if that's the path she wants. So and then the book, it is set in a contemporary setting, but there are speculative elements, so some strange things do happen in it. So that's my book.
Holy crap, that sounds amazing. Honestly, everybody's books sound amazing. Also, all of you have like gorgeous covers. This is really cool. So I'll go. I'm Nita Tyndall. My debut, Who I Was With Her, comes out from Harper September 15th of this year. I do not have an ARC yet, but I got a package notification that a box is on its way to me from New York today, so I'm hoping that's what the box is. Fingers crossed. But my debut is a contemporary about a 17-year-old girl named Corinne Parker whose secret girlfriend dies, and she has to deal with that grief when nobody else knows that they were even dating or that Corinne is bisexual. And the book is, she is confident in like kind of herself and her bisexuality, but she still doesn't want anyone else to know. So it's her trying to figure out how to deal with all of those feelings by herself until she meets her girlfriend's ex-girlfriend, who actually might understand what she's going through.
Sounds so good. I saw your cover on Twitter too, and it's gorgeous. It's a really beautiful cover.
I'm obsessed with that cover. It is stunning.
I am kind of also obsessed with it. I like got really super lucky with that cover. It's also very pink, which I love.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering what drew y'all towards writing in these contemporary settings instead of maybe like a second world like fantasy or like space or historical settings. What really sort of drew you towards writing like the now, although it's usually like the 2 years in the present or the future because, you know, publishing moves slow. Were you always a big contemporary reader? Did it just sort of happen when you were writing? It just sort of was where the story took you? Like what was that process like?
I'll go. I'm frankly in awe of people who write historical fiction and fantasy. My brain just can't, well, can't conceive of the research that goes into historical fiction, and then with fantasy, my brain just doesn't work that way, although I love reading it. For me, even though my book has unrealistic elements to it, I need something to ground me when I start. And for me, a lot of the time that has to do with setting. So a lot of the location, my book is based in the San Francisco Bay Area. A lot of the locations are places that I know well, that I can really use that as a jumping off point. And then once I start writing, then it kind of frees me up to explore some of the more, you know, creative parts of, not creative, I mean more just other ideas I want to explore. But I need some realistic parts to ground me. Otherwise, I just would sit there in front of a blank page. So, and then also I just wanted to look at issues that are relevant to teens in a contemporary world today. Even though right now, it's kind of interesting to see how everything that's going on is going to affect that moving forward. When you talk about 2 years ago being what, you know, we're writing about in contemporary, that feels like about 1 million years ago right now. So it'll be interesting.
I love what you say about setting. I feel similarly that like my books thus far, like the setting's been a huge part for me. My first book was set in Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived for a year and where my husband grew up. And then my second one, Only Love Can Break Your Heart, you might be able to tell by the cactus, as I mentioned earlier, so I'm set in the Palm Springs desert where my grandparents lived, my mom grew up, so I spent so much of my childhood there. And I just love the desert so much. It's where I got married. I think there's something almost like magical, like real life magical about the desert at night. Like the stars are so bright and it's so kind of weird and eerie. And there's a lot of strange places in the book that are all actually real places that you can go in the desert, like the giant dinosaurs, or there's like a Bottle Tree Ranch. And then I do love fantasy though so much. One day I would love to write a fantasy novel. My books, similar to how you were saying, have like a slight, they're definitely grounded in contemporary, but sometimes kind of weird mystical things happen. And I feel like my editors are always like reeling back the fantasy. But one day I'm going to write an epic fantasy one day. But I love contemporary so much. I love reading contemporary. And I think for me, I don't know about all of you, but when I'm writing a YA character, like the characters are in no way me, but I draw on kind of experiences and feelings I had as a teenager. And I find it slightly easier to relate, even though I was not a teenager when now people are teenager, but to kind of, you know, being in high school and like dealing with those kinds of pressures. And I like writing and exploring like family and friendship dynamics, which obviously you can hugely explore in fantasy and historical, of course, but there's something that feels really, it's much more centered, I think, if you've got a contemporary background. And I love like probably some of my favorite, I love Ashley Woodfolk and Nick Stone, and Jandy Nelson was huge like contemporary inspiration for me in terms of just contemporary writers I love.
Yeah, I am such a huge Jandy Nelson fan. I've had 3 opportunities to meet her just at like book events, have missed every single one of them for one reason or another. So like I'm super sad. Yeah, but I love Jandy. She's just like a wonder. Her work is brilliant. But yeah, I guess I'll jump in there and just say that I've like asked myself this question a lot because I've tried to dabble in other like genres and categories, and I keep coming back to YA contemporary because, well, I think part of it is just okay, like rewind. I had this huge crush on a girl in college, and she said this one thing that stuck with me. Mind you, I graduated college in 2011, and it's 2020, so that's a long time for something to stick with you. She said, a little bit of a tongue twister, she said, it's not enough to always write weird worlds. Sometimes we have to write the ways in which our world is weird. And so that stuck with me, and that's like a thing I'm always trying to do with my books, which is why I set a bee farm in the middle of like congested, polluted Los Angeles, and why I wrote this affluent Black girl who like is the only girl on her football team, but is like contained multitudes, you know what I mean, in terms of just like being feminine and being this like proud Black girl, just like she's nuanced. And so I just felt like there are ways in which to write the weirdness of contemporary worlds. And that's like such a challenge, I think, that we as contemporary writers take on. And like kudos to all of you, because Jesus. And I think another thing is that, I too find it easier to like live in this world, regardless of whether or not I'm a 31-year-old writing about like 17 and 18-year-olds. I have worked with teens and young adults and kids for a large part of my like outside of writing career. And so it's like I'm constantly learning things from them and connecting to who these like people are. And I think that's the kind of thing that inspires me to write the things that I write. So.
I love that. I love what you said about finding the weird in the world that we live in. I think that is so true. And I think that's sometimes very difficult to do in contemporary, but it's very necessary and very worth it when you are able to find that. Also, I am obsessed with the beekeeping in the middle of Los Angeles idea. So if like definitely picking up your book for sure. But for me, I'm so sorry if you hear weird sounds. That is my cat snoring. For me, it was really important to set this book in North Carolina specifically. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. When I was a queer teenager, I didn't read a lot of books, one about queer teens and contemporary in general, and two that were set in the South where I live, which often has a really bad reputation for queer teens and queer people, especially smack in the middle of the Bible Belt. I did read a lot of Sarah Dessen as a young adult, and I was like, oh, if she can write stuff set in North Carolina, then I can write stuff set in North Carolina. So I really wanted to explore that particular feeling of being queer in the South and being queer like in a very small town where everybody knows everybody. And also I decided to start drafting a historical, and it is so much research. It is so much research. So I'm probably going to just stick with contemporary after this, because at least there's research, but I still had to research for this book because my main character is a cross-country runner, which I absolutely did no sports whatsoever in high school. So there was research involved with that, but it's not nearly as bad as looking up what people wore in 1938.
I love all these ideas. Jandy Nelson also was a huge inspiration for the writing of my book, as was Erica Sanchez, and really a lot of the contemporary novels. Especially, I think about when I was a teen, how few novels, and even now I feel there aren't a lot that deal with some issues that are a little bit darker when it comes to romance. Especially when you bring in cultural elements into that romance. And, you know, I mean, I also tend to be the kind of person at the party in the corner with one person getting this really intense, like, it's hard for me. I'm not a light, like, yeah, this is not coming off quite right, but I tend to want to get into the meat of the matter in even those, like, you know, what most people are having casual conversations. So part of it is personality, I think, for why I'm drawn to contemporary. Contemporary tends to, you know, just, you get to the meat in a way that, not to say that other, you know, genres don't, but it's sort of a hit the nail on the head. It's in your face and you can't hide. So that was exciting. The idea of writing something from my sort of cultural background to which doesn't feel like there were a lot, you know, other books that were doing that. So that was just an exciting idea. And the idea of like sort of rom-com tends to be a lot of what those interracial, you know, where it always sort of ends up where it's okay. They end up okay, the couple, you know. So the reality is in high school, a lot of those relationships don't work out. So what are the, you know, what is the backstory? What, you know, if you can really get into the texture of that, that always sort of drew me.
All right, I think that leaves me. So I actually, with Shannon, I don't think I have the brain for historical fiction, and I love fantasy. I love reading it. I love the descriptions in fantasy in particular. I think they're incredible. My brain just doesn't work that way. The way that I feel like I really flex my creative side in a contemporary setting is format. Format for me has always been something that I love playing with. It really excites me and gets me going. So that's why, you know, text and emails and inverse and stuff like that. But contemporary in particular has always held this really special spot in my heart because I felt like I could explore people and really dissect their motivations, and I don't know, that just gets me excited.
I'm gonna ask this question and then I'm gonna run and get the dog because he's like screaming and my mother is also on a call, so he has to be with one of us at this point. So it'll still be recording while I'm gone. I just won't be on the screen. So one of the things that I love so much about YA is the exploration of identity, and it's so present and so authentic. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about like the journey that your main character goes through in terms of how they see themselves, and maybe a little bit of how that changes, as much as you can talk about that without spoiling your books, because obviously everyone who watches this is gonna go like pre-order all of your books, so, or order them if they're already out, obviously. So whoever would like to start with that.
When you were talking about verse, I was curious, have you read Clap When You Land yet? Because it's in verse and it's also about like kind of like discovering your heritage, and I feel like sounds like it would sit really nicely with yours.
Oh my gosh. So one, she is incredible. She just followed me on Twitter 2 nights ago and I almost had a heart attack. She was such a huge inspiration because when The Poet X came out, that was like one of my huge, like I was obsessed with that book that summer, and I read a lot of her, Jason Reynolds. I was like just sucking in all of the verse novels. And so part of the reason why I wrote this in verse. So I live in Alaska and I cannot get that book in town. Like I cannot get it. I have tried everywhere. We only have 2 bookstores in Anchorage. I have tried everything I could to get it and I can't. So I downloaded it on Audible last night and I've been listening to it. I have like an hour left and it's
isn't it stunning? So we're talking about Clap When You Land because she was talking about verse and I was like, just what? So we, you know, look, the moderator goes away for a minute and we immediately are like,
so I know. It's fantastic. She's incredible. Everything she writes. And I don't know if you've ever listened to anything that she's done on audio. Her voice is like a hug. She is amazing. Oh my gosh. You have to listen to her stuff on audio because her voice is like so good.
Oh, amazing.
Sorry, I was gushing.
No, I love that. A really good verse author. She's really big here in the UK. She was just the Irish laureate, but her name's Sarah Crossan, and she writes and won the Carnegie, and she does loads of great verse.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm so impressed with people who write in verse. I love reading it, and I would love to do it, but I feel like I wouldn't. I don't know. It seems very intimidating to me.
Do it.
Who wants to answer the question about the character development question?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. So I'm already half talking anyway. So one of the biggest parts of the Truth Project is her discovering who she is. really important in the sense that she feels like at the beginning of the book, Cordelia feels like she knows exactly who she is. She's going to skirt through senior year. She's basically using her senior project as an excuse to like get some one-on-one time with this guy that she likes. And then all of this kind of comes out, and not only is she discovering that her parents aren't who she thought they were, she maybe isn't who she thinks that she is. So there's a lot of Cordelia grappling with trying on different hats and seeing what sticks. And as she's getting to know this guy who's her biological father, seeing what parts of him are in her too. And so, yeah, it's identity is a huge part in this book in particular, and I'm sure with Cam's book too, like in everyone's book. But when you discover this big secret, it changes how you feel. And I mean, I think the line on the back says, if your life began with a lie, how can you ever be sure what's true?
Huh. That sounds a lot like the like tagline for Home and Away, which is, I'm gonna read it because I have never ever memorized it. When you don't know who you are, no place feels like home. And so yeah, like 10 out of 10 relatable content right there. And so yeah, like that, it's like almost the exact same thing for Tasia. She's like very confident, like I said, in who she is as a football player, and who she is as a Black girl, and who she is as like the like oldest kid of her in her immediate family. She's just like, and she's also this like affluent Black girl who like never hurts for money. She's like almost this much of a snob. Like she just is completely like, my life is good, I have no problems, I broke a nail and like it sucks, and that's the biggest problem that I have in the world right now. And so she gets thrown this curveball. Same thing where she finds out that her parents have lied to her, and that her biological father is this like sort of like white like hippie kind of like, I like paint for a living kind of dude, and she is just like completely thrown. So she in like a fit of rage like moves in with him, and it's like easily the most confusing time of her life. And so I think like the journey of like self in Home and Away is super prevalent. Like you cannot deny that it's like easily just like the point of the story. Whereas I think in By Any Means Necessary, Tori is he's journeying for self, but he doesn't know it. He is trying to make these decisions about whether or not it's okay for him to pursue college and leave his family behind, and leave his home, leave LA behind. And mind you, family and home have never been places of love for him. And so he's like, do I owe them? Like, does it make me a bad person if I just want to like fall in love with a cute guy and like learn some stuff about agriculture in college and make new friends and like live in this big new city by myself? And so, like I said, he doesn't know he's gone through it, but he's definitely on a search for something. And I think it takes, I'm almost going too far, I promise not to spoil it. He's got this thing where it's like he just, how not to spoil it? I'm gonna just stop there because I just gotta stop there. It's gonna be a spoiler otherwise.
That was amazing though. I'm so excited. Also, Cam, I'm really excited and kind of low-key fangirling because we've been like mutuals for a while, but never like properly like talked in an old video chatted, obviously, because that's an intense thing to do with someone you don't know very well. But so I'm really excited to like, see you. Yeah, no, both of your books sound so incredible. I have Home and Away somewhere, but I should have like had it as a show off. But no, I really for my I think my characters can definitely relate to what you were saying about like feeling like finding your place, and I think that's something that all contemporary writers kind of grapple with. And I enjoyed you're talking about how your first character comes kind of from quite a privileged background. Reiko Smith-Morey, the main character in Only Love Can Break Your Heart, is similar. She lives in this beautiful house in the desert. She's got really loving parents, but she's, you know, really grappling with a grief that from something that's happened that everyone thinks she should have moved on from. And she feels like her way her way of kind of dealing with the grief is she feels like she has to be absolutely perfect. She doesn't want to let her family down. She doesn't want to let herself down. And so she kind of is always being a different version of Reiko until she meets Seth, and she feels like, oh, he's going to see me for the real me. But he actually is kind of projecting the ideal girl onto her as well. And then she also is leaning on him way too much. I really wanted to explore, you can probably tell by the title in the book. I really like what you were saying earlier about how, you know, sometimes relationships look, in high school relationships, always have happy endings, especially in the rom-com. Like, I wanted to have a breakup novel where they stay broken up. And also, small spoiler, but like, Reiko, it's not like then she finds someone else. Like, I wanted her to be like okay on her own, and that's really her journey. And then also her journey is just kind of discovering stuff about like her own privilege, and like also kind of how self-centered she can be. She makes some truly terrible decisions. Like, she's the kind of character, like a lot of like readers sometimes are like, oh my god, I wanted to like reach into the book and shake her. And sometimes she can be a little unlikable and spiky, but I love her, and I just always say to readers, like, please stick with her. Like, you have to go through her journey with her. Whereas the main character in my first book, Wing Jones, Wing is like just like the sweetest cinnamon roll ever. Like, if you didn't like Wing, like, you're a terrible person. Whereas like Reiko, I'm like, fair enough. The girl makes some colossally awful self-centered decisions. But I mean, I made bad decisions when I was a teenager. I was self-centered. A lot of you know, I feel like it felt really authentic to her. So her journey, like, it's more coming to terms with like that she's not the center of the universe. And also realizing that she's got, you know, finding her true self. So it was really a hard one to write. I did 8 rewrites on this book because I was trying to nail her, like, who she was.
Catherine, I think Reiko and Corinne, my protagonist, would probably get along well because they're both very like spiky, angry girls, which is also what I wanted to write and explore. I also read a lot of Courtney Summers, who does the unlikable girl thing so well.
Obsessed.
Oh my god, she's so good. I'm so excited for her newest. I have no idea what it's going to be. I already know it's going to break me. I'm ready for it. But for me, with writing Corinne, the book is told non-linearly, so it is a lot of her journey after Maggie's death, but it is also her relationship with Maggie and her coming to terms with her own bisexuality and coming out, and if she feels like she can or should come out, especially with where she lives. For me, I really wanted to explore that kind of questioning, because that's the kind of questioning I did in high school. Slight spoiler, but whatever, her best friend is also questioning if she's asexual or not, and completely separately from Corinne. But I also wanted, for me, Corinne's identity for the entire like past year has been tied up into her secret relationship with Maggie. And now that Maggie is dead, she really doesn't know what she's supposed to do with herself or what she wants, because Maggie was like a very ambitious girl. She was like the captain of her cross country team. She wanted like a lot of really big things, and Corinne wanted them because Maggie wanted them. And now she's having to figure out like, oh, is that really what I want? Do I want to run in college? Do I want to go to college? Am I really like allowed to want stuff for myself rather than like what Maggie wanted for me, or what Corinne's dad wants for her, or her like friends or her classmates or everything. So yep.
I think Tasia would like to join with Corinne and also with Reiko in the Spiky Girls Club. I think we're 3 for 3 so far.
Also, though, girls doing, I mean, Reiko doesn't do sports. She rock comes with girls in sports as well. I'm in Wing Jones is a runner, and she like discovers that about herself. And obviously, Cam, your book has I'm a girl athlete, and sounds like you've got a runner. So yay! I'm like so not athletic, but I really love like writing girls who are like good at sports.
Yeah, and I love the Spiky Girls Club. I think that there needs to be more of that in YA for sure. Identity is just, I mean, I think almost every YA book is at its heart about identity, because that age is so much about figuring out who you are, who you want to be. And I actually feel like we all keep rediscovering our identities as our lives progress. We're never done doing that. But for my character, I really wanted to explore, you know, I think a lot of high school, especially for college-bound kids, is about this hyper focus on planning for your future. And who are you when that gets derailed? And my character's life is upended by a heart transplant. So that's a pretty big life-changing event, causes her to rethink her life in many ways. But so that's the first catalyst for her, like looking at her identity and who she is and how she wants to look at her future after that. But then what inspired this book in the first place was I had read a story, and I can't remember where it was, about organ recipients and this concept called cellular memory, where recipients feel like they've almost inherited preferences or habits or some kind of piece of their donor's identity. And I just thought that was fascinating. There's no scientific proof that that's a real thing or not, but I just thought that was a fascinating way, because I just think it must be so wild, especially for people who are heart recipients, because there's so much, like, even though the heart is this muscle that pumps blood, there's so much emotional connotations related to heart. What it must be like to think that, you know, a part of you is alive because of someone else, and what responsibility you have towards that person. And so I just thought there was a lot of ways to look at identity through that topic. So that's what, and I don't want to spoil too much, but that's what kind of catalyzed how I looked at identity in the book.
It sounds incredible. Also, Shannon, I saw that you're published in the UK by Walker. Who's your editor at Walker?
Denise Pope.
Oh, wait, dude, they published me here in the UK as well. They're very lovely. They've got a great, you know, they publish like Patrick Best and Angie. They're wonderful. I love them. They're like amazingly independent, and like in a their offices are in an old mattress factory. It's like the opposite of like glamorous, you know, like New York publishing high rise. Like it's literally a converted mattress factory, but they're so lovely. So that's exciting. I'm really looking
forward to hear.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Really looking forward to reading your book, though.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for your book. Yeah, I mean, identity, I can relate to everything that everyone has said. I mean, it's just, you know, in my book, Ronnie is very super connected to her traditional, you know, Indian immigrant family. She's sort of done everything as was expected. She's very, and she, you know, is ambitious, and she wants to be a pediatrician and has sort of dreamed that for herself. But there is an element of wondering how much of this is my dream and how much of this is other people's wanting, you know, me to have this kind of a dream. And always underlying everything is this feeling of sort of that need to be seen or need for belonging with her peers that don't really share her cultural background, the peers at school. So when she meets Oliver, there is a lot of him sort of seeing her within her cultural world, but also seeing something in her as an artist. She dabbles in photography. So he's kind of this up and coming, really celebrated artist of his own right. So he starts to kind of, you know, encourage her art and encourage these other elements in her that she had always sort of dreamed of, but it was more of like a pipe dream. So it starts to, you know, that's where he kind of helps bring out some of her different elements of her identity. So I do love that idea that identity is something that, you know, it's constantly changing, and it's also constantly being impacted by the people that you meet and the things that they see in you and bring out in you. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and then when those other people sort of have their own struggles going on, how does that impact the way they're going to view you and the way you view yourself? So.
It sounds like it'll make me cry, your book. I'm like, it sounds amazing.
I do cry still during these. I'm like, okay, how many times have I rewritten this section and read this section? It's funny when our own books can just still do that.
I'm gonna jump in my question list that I sent y'all really quick to my last question because I want to make sure we get to it. So if you were coming up with a one-time subscription box-esque thing for your main character, based on your main character, and it needed to include one of each of the following things, what would you pick? So it's got to have a book that's in addition to your own book, obviously. It has to have a snack, and we can pretend for the purposes of this, like even if it's like perishable, we'll pretend that it would work. And then either a candle based on your main character, a commissioned art piece, or a knickknack based on something in their life. You don't have to tell us what those things the final ones would be. Like, you don't have to tell us like what scent the candle would be, but if they're a candle person, you can just say they would have a candle. So a book, a snack, a candle, art, or knickknack.
I love this question. I would give Reiko, okay, I'm going to be cheeky and cheat on the first one, 2 books. She gets The Bells by Danielle Clayton and also Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland. I think she would learn a lot from them. I think she'd relate to the books a lot. As far as for the snack, since we are allowed to send perishable, definitely ice cream, which is funny because she lives in the desert, but definitely chocolate chip ice cream, or chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream, and commissioned art piece for sure.
I'm obsessed with this question. I was so excited. So for the book, it would be King Lear, which Shakespeare's like a huge part of Cordelia's journey, and she's actually named for a character in King Lear. Salmon jerky because Alaska, and then a candle that smells like the love interest Kodiak Jones, who doesn't smell like sandalwood, but would for sure smell like birch and ocean.
Okay, this answer is going to reflect my indecisive nature, so I also have 2 books. My main character is definitely a science and math kind of girl, so I think she would pick something that reflected that. So the first one I thought of was Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time, because that's always been a favorite of mine. And the other one is she's really into physics. So Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time would be the other one. So those are the 2 books. That was my easiest one. For a snack, I'm just going to be boring and say something like popcorn was the first thing that popped into my mind. Oh, no pun intended. But anyhow, so that would be the snack. And then for the category choice, I again had to because I couldn't decide. I like the idea of a knickknack in the ocean, and surfing plays a big role in my book. So I thought of like a little vial of sand would be like kind of a time capsule kind of thing. And if it was art, it would be an anatomical drawing of a heart.
Ooh, I love that. I have a giant poster of an anatomical heart, and I've had it since high school. And my mom used to make me take it down every time I put it up because she said it looked gross. But the fact that I still own it and have it now in my very own live alone apartment is just like my favorite thing ever. So yeah, I'm gonna go with By Any Means Necessary, just because this is like question answers itself. So By Any Means Necessary, the book that would go in there would be By Any Means Necessary by Malcolm X. Yes, there is a connection. By Any Means Necessary by Malcolm X is just like a listing of all his political speeches, his like discussions about women in politics and like women's empowerment, stuff like that. So like that's like my main character all over. And then also for a snack, Tori owning a bee farm would include tiny little like adorably packaged packets of weird honey. So like there's a thing that I had, it's disgusting, called avocado honey, but he would definitely throw some of those in there. And then for a commissioned art piece, that would definitely absolutely be a thing he would include. And it would just be like these weird like digital drawings of his 4 college best friends. They go by the name of Cake, Clark, Auburn, Kennedy, and Emory. And they basically just own his life at college, and so he would definitely owe them something.
You guys are so creative. What the heck? Also, I'm skeptical of avocado honey. I want to try it, but I'm skeptical of it.
Don't try it.
So for mine, for who I was with her for a book, I would honestly probably include Nina LaCour's Everything Leads to You. One, because I think my main character would be happy to read a like cute contemporary queer rom-com, and also because I wanted to include a happy book because my book is not happy in the slightest. Snack, for some reason, I don't know why I remember this detail, but my main character really loves Kit Kats. Probably because I really love Kit Kats. So Kit Kats will be going in this. They're not, it's fake, they're not gonna melt, it's fine. And for the last one, I'd probably go with commissioned art piece. Mostly because that's actually something I've been thinking about, because the art, I really love the art for my book cover, and I kind of would love to get that artist to do like more with different characters in the book. So.
I was thinking the same thing with the art piece. I am obsessed with that idea. So I would say that my character would, maybe her book would be The Intern Blues, which is it's a book that where this Dr. Robert Marion asked 3 interns of his that he was overseeing for the year to keep a very like concise and detailed diary for the year about just their experiences as new doctors. And my character is sort of obsessed with this idea of becoming a pediatrician. She reads lots of articles on you know, in pediatric journals and things like that. So I thought that would be something that she would sort of get a lot out of and love. She makes samosas for one of the dates that she has with Oliver. So that would of course be in there. And I was struggling with the object. I mean, she's, you know, into photography, and so thinking camera, but then they commission art piece, of course. Now that you guys bring to that, I'm like, of course. So art is such a huge part of this book in terms of her discovering her own art and her being influenced by Oliver's art. And so I think that would be in there as well.
What would be really cute is little like Polaroid shaped commissioned art pieces where it was like a picture, but it was like a drawing.
You nailed it. That's right. There is Polaroid stuff in there. So that's it. Thank you.
Love to see it. Okay, so I think this is going to be my last question time-wise. So do you have any rituals that help you get into the mindset for your main characters? Maybe you go back and read what you wrote the previous day to sort of get back. Maybe you've got a writing playlist that you listen to all the time. You have to sit in the same spot. You've got a particular cup of tea that you make, like whatever it may be. And if the answer is no, then you can just tell us a fun fact so that you can still talk. I don't know. I wasn't thinking about the fact that could be a yes or no question. So yes.
I love the idea of writing rituals, and like in my ideal place, I totally have it. Like, yes, I sit and I love candles. I have a candle that a reader gave me called Reiko, inspired by my main character. I also have a 1-year-old baby though, so I write whenever I can. So like I used to be much more like, okay, like is the light right? Does the air smell nice? Like, is my kitchen clean? And now, like, as soon as my baby goes down for a nap, I'm like, I need to write some words. But I find music is the best thing to get me in the headspace for a specific book. I always do a playlist. But also weirdly, I always include like the same song. It's by Lindsay Sterling, who does the like kind of techno-y violin. Something about it. That's always my like, all right, you need to focus now music, and it works really well. So I wish I had more in-depth rituals, but I like small ones. Like I like lighting a candle, and I also drink copious amounts of tea while writing, but that's mostly to stay caffeinated because of the said 1-year-old.
I'm same with playlists. I think a lot of us are that way. I love to make a playlist for whatever I'm working on that kind of captures the emotion of what I'm going for. But that said, I cannot listen to that playlist while I'm working. I have to listen to some kind of white noise or like a deep focus on Spotify, something without lyrics, because otherwise my brain just malfunctions. But And one ritual I'm really missing right now is although I do write a lot at home, I need to change my scenery up a lot. And I really love to go to local libraries. I like rotate around libraries where I live, and I go to coffee shops a lot. And that really just helps me kind of reset my creative energy. So I'm definitely missing that a bit at the moment. But so those are my two things.
I'm gonna hop on the playlist train here. I make very specific playlists for kind of each of my main characters or like themes of the book, and like I like to give them little artwork on Spotify or Apple Music. Again, I think, like you said, Shannon, I don't listen to them while I'm writing. I'd rather listen to like I actually listen to a lot of like film soundtracks depending on whatever mood I'm working on. So for the historical, I'm listening to the soundtrack to Babylon Berlin, which is a TV show set in Germany in the 1920s, which is a really good show. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on Netflix. But the atmosphere of that was just really perfect for that. I do have candles. I tend to like pick one scent per book, and theoretically, like in an ideal world, I would light that candle every time I sat down to write, so I would associate that scent with the book. It doesn't always happen because I usually forget. But I'll probably actually pick that up because I really like the idea of each book having its own kind of scent or whatnot. I like the idea of rituals. I'm just not very good at usually following them.
Yeah, I want to on a candle thing.
I was just about to say that. I agree with you both. I do like the idea of rituals. I just am anti-ritual, not by choice. My rituals are kind of boring. When I sit down to write, the first thing I do is I put on my back brace because within 5 minutes of sitting upright to like stare down at a computer and type, it's just impossible to move after that. So we wear a back brace. My back brace is pink though, so it's probably cool. And also I don't do this every time. I would say maybe 1 in 5 times that I sit down to write. I do a 3-card tarot spread for not necessarily my characters or the story, but like my intention. And sometimes the spread helps like guide where the story goes because I don't outline. I'm just a pantser. I try to outline. I've never been good at it. So yeah, that's just my 2 things: back brace and my deck.
I love that you do that. That's so cool. Like with the tarot readings before a writing session. That's amazing.
I love that too. And like you, I just feel like I don't have, a ritual that I follow every day. I love the idea of music, but it really has to be pin drop silence. It's like, I'm so boring in that way. I do love, like in my off time, when I get up from the desk, to be just kind of always sort of have that, whether it's music, or even a show or another book. I mean, all those things are constantly influencing, your headspace when it comes to your characters and the world that you're building. But I would say the latest thing that I've gotten into is essential oils, which it's not like I do anything fancy. I just take the cap off and just leave it in there. And it does, and this is my little writing, it's actually a closet, part of my bedroom. And so you open something like that up and you leave it open, and it actually does scent the place without it being overpowering. So that's one little thing that I feel it just is sort of comforting more than anything, and just sort of allows you to get into that zone. But it's not anything too fancy.
I have no rituals. 0. I have 4 kids, so I write anywhere that I can. I feel like it would be safe to say that a majority of the Truth Project was actually written like in the middle of chores, where I'd be like, oh, let me write this feeling down. And then my kids would be like screaming in the background. And so I think, yeah, no music, no playlists, organized chaos, maybe not so organized chaos. That is my ritual.
I'm always so interested in that because I have a friend who's super into what she calls audio-visual outlining, where she like literally has a Pinterest board outline for every scene in her book. Like it is bonkers, but it really works for her. And so
Yeah.
I'm just really intrigued by if people have things that they go to.
So I have Post-its, but like my crazy Post-it note board, and that is how I outline. So before I draft, it's just that, which makes the organized chaos easier because then I just, pick up my stack of Post-its and write that scene.
There you go. That works.
I remember an actual ritual I have, which has nothing to do with getting in the scene. Whenever I finish a book, I treat myself out to tacos. That's my like finished a book, I get tacos.
We love it. Do you not have tacos otherwise? Or
No, I really love tacos. I have tacos a lot, but like they're like celebratory extra tacos. I'm like, I'm gonna order all of them. And decide I'm treating myself. So yeah, food is a big motivator for me.
Relatable. So one more time, can I just have everybody reiterate your name, your books that are either currently available, or if they're not yet available, please tell us when they will be available. Most likely, obviously, COVID, so who knows. But just like when they're supposed to be out. And where people can find you on the internet. So your website or your social media, whatever of those things you would like to share.
I'm Katherine Webber, author of Only Love Can Break Your Heart and The Heartbeats of Wing Jones. You can find me on Twitter at kwebberwrites, and on Instagram, kwebberwanders. And my website is also kwebberwrites.
So I'm Anuradha Rajurkar, and my book's coming out February 2021. It's called American BETIYA. BETIYA, by the way, means daughter or darling. And my Twitter is ADRajurkar1. And you could also find me on my website, anuradharajurkar.com. And I'm also on Instagram, Anuradha D. Rajurkar.
I am Cam Montgomery. My debut is called Home and Away, and my sophomore novel is called By Any Means Necessary, both of which are currently out and on shelves now. I am most active on Twitter at Candice Amanda, and you can also find me on Instagram at camstagram.jpg, and then my website is CandiceMontgomery.com.
I'm Shanon Takaoka. My book is Everything I Thought I Knew. It's coming October 13th, 2020 from Candlewick Press. And you can find me online at ShannonTakaokaWrites.com. That's also my Instagram handle at Shanon Takaoka Writes. And I'm on Twitter as at Shanon Takaoka.
All right, I'm Dante Medema. My debut novel comes out on October 13th, The Truth Project. You can find me on Twitter at Dante Medema, my website, dantemedema.com, or on Instagram at Dante Medema Writes. No, Dante Medema Books. Yeah, I got that wrong. Oops.
Great. I'm Nita Tyndall. My debut, Who I Was With Her, comes out September 15th. Theoretically, as far as I know. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nita Tyndall, and I'm pretty much just only on those platforms. So.
Hey y'all, thanks so much for tuning into this panel. If you're looking for more panels like it, make sure you check out the All by My Shelf playlist on our YouTube page. It'll tell you all of the different panels that you're able to watch.